Alright guys, I'm gonna go straight into it. Last rant I talked about real accountability, and I just want to add something to that before I get into this rant. It's that please do not make the mistake of promising people that you will never ever tell anyone anything about what you guys discussed. Why? Because sometimes people will say something and you realize you don't have the skill or the training to actually help them. If a person says, I am so addicted to alcohol that I am now massively in debt and I'm hurting my spouse physically, like I'm beating up my spouse, things like that. You might have to call a psychiatrist, a psychologist. If they're going through depression, you might have to call the cops. If he's hurting someone already, call the police or something. So don't just promise people, I will never tell anyone no matter what, because then they can hold you hostage and they can feel free to confess everything to you without ever repenting, and you're stuck because you gave a promise. All right, so that's one thing. I think I've said this in a different rant, but I just wanted to make sure to say it here. Okay, how do you look for a healthy church if solo Christianity is not the way to go and you need good real accountability, and that should be in or with formal members of a local church? How do you find a good local church? The number one book I would recommend right now about looking for a healthy church is entitled 9 Marks of a Healthy Church, written by Mark Dever. So I strongly, highly recommend that you read that book, 9 Marks of a Healthy Church. That talks about the 9 different things that you need to look for in a local church. If they have all 9, then that's great, wonderful, terrific. Join that church, of course. And the wonderful thing also about this book is it gives you some practical steps and applications at the end of every chapter. And that's something that I really enjoyed reading. Now, in addition to the 9 Marks recommendation the 9 Marks of a Healthy Church book I recommend, how do you go about it? Let me just give 3. This is going to be a very short rant. But let me give 3, maybe 4 practical steps. So step number 1, I would directly communicate with an elder or a pastor of the church you're planning to join. So I would just tell them my intentions. I would say it straight. I am not in church right now. I am looking for a church. I am a Christian. I do want to grow. I want to get involved, and I'm attending. I'm sitting in the services. I'm attending because I want to observe the church. I want to get to know how you guys do things, what your sermons are like, and all of that. Be honest and upfront with the pastor, all right? And there's a reason why. Number 1, it's just to show respect. It's, church ethics and all of that stuff, right? So you want the pastors and the elders to know what you're doing so they won't feel like, oh, who is this person? What's this person doing here all of a sudden, right? So you want them to know. Second reason why I would strongly suggest you tell the elders and the pastors is so that they'll also keep an eye on you for your own good. Because they also would love to help you. I'm assuming if it's a healthy church, then the pastors there, the elders, would want to help you with your journey. All right, so tell them. The next step I would say is one of the most difficult ones. It's to have patience and to stay in the church and attend it for quite some time. I don't know how much time it takes. Sometimes it takes a long time. Sometimes all it takes is maybe 1 sitting. Okay. The reason why I would say spend time is because you gotta not just attend the services. You have to still attend little things like what's their Bible studies like. Those weekday, midweek services or midweek Bible study groups, midweek, whatever. If there's a men's group, you're a guy, you attend the men's group. If you're a girl, there's a girls group or a ladies group, you attend that. You find out the culture, you see how they speak, how they talk. If you like, let's say you're a guy, you want to attend this church, and you're like, okay, according to the doctrines, their statement of faith, it all checks out. It's great. You attend the men's group, and then they just talk about like, okay, who's your crush? Who are you gonna court? Who are you gonna pursue? Oh, have you gotten together with her yet? If it's like that, you're like, huh? Okay, so the culture isn't matching what's on paper, So you gotta attend. So you gotta know. You gotta observe and experience for yourself and find out if they walk the talk. If what they write on paper is actually how they live their Christian lives. Okay, and sometimes pastors need fresh insight from fresh eyes. I'll talk about that on the 3rd step. But yeah, attend as much as you can the different stuff that they have. If a church has, let's say, evangelistic events, try to attend those. you want to get to know the church as much as possible before you make a decision. That's always my recommendation. There have been times I tried when I was looking for a church, when I left my very first church. There were times I tried, attending this church, that church, There was this one church I attended just once, and I said, nope, we're done. Because I attended the church, and it didn't have much in the doctrinal statement, so I tried to reach out to the pastor. The pastor was busy, so he said, why don't we just talk after the service? And I'm like, okay, well, that's great. We'll talk after the service, and, I'll just ask my questions there. So my intention was to talk to the pastor, step 1, and to attend step 2. When I attended, the person preaching was a woman, and I already knew, okay, and they addressed her as pastora, or a woman pastor, and the first thing in my head was, well, I guess I'm done here. I don't even need to stay very long, because I can't stay in a church with women pastors. Their doctrinal statement surely didn't say anything. So I met with the pastor, and I just told him straight, I was looking for a church, and I just realized this church really isn't for me. I am complementarian when it comes to my understanding of pastors. And, he was very nice. He was just like, okay, well, thanks for visiting us, and I hope you would find your church good for you, that's right for you, and all of that stuff. And I said, okay, all right. And no harm, no foul, right? I didn't press them and say, you got to repent of this. Like, that wasn't my purpose for attending. Okay, so you got to attend. Sometimes you know right away. Sometimes it takes a lot of time. Step 3. I would say step 3 is to talk to the pastors again after you've observed. For several reasons. Reason number 1, again, they need fresh eyes and fresh insight and fresh input. So you might eventually end up being their kind of eyes and ears when they have no idea what's happening with their church. That would be a great way to help the pastors. You might end up telling them things, and they get shocked, and they go, I didn't know this was happening in my church. So for example, the gossip situation. So you tell them, Pastor, I love everything you write on your statement of faith. Your doctrines sound really good. I agree with everything doctrinally. It's just when I attended the men's group, they were all gossiping and talking about like which girl got together with which guy, and which girl each guy was pursuing. And, I found that a little weird. And then they'll go, I had no idea this was happening. I thought it was a very clean, wholesome kind of Bible study for the men. So I'm going to have to address that. And that might be a good thing in the sense that maybe you can stay a little bit longer and see what happens, okay? So yeah, those are, you gotta talk to them. You gotta talk to them. Step 4, whenever you make a decision, tell them. Just tell them. If you've decided to stay, tell them, hey, I attended for quite some time. I'm really enjoying my stay. I'm learning and growing and everything. I want to be a member. How does that work? What's the process? If you've decided to leave, tell them. I've decided this church isn't for me. We've talked the first time. I've talked to you the second time to report to you what was happening. And then I stayed a little bit more, and I've really decided this place isn't for me. And then you tell them why. And then you leave. No harm, no foul. But you got to be honest. So those are my 4 steps. So talk to them, then observe, talk to them again. And step 4 is if there's more to talk about and more to observe, then you stay and talk some more. And then step 4 might get repeated over and over again, but that's a necessary step. That's what I would do. I would or recommend to you guys if you're looking for a church. I hope this was helpful as a series. God bless you guys.